Mr. Chairman.
Howdy.
Mr. Meadows? Mr. Turner?
You have a sheep around your shoulders
Yeah,
in case it gets cold in here.
okay. Good evening.
No gavel?
No gavel?
You have to use your class ring, I guess. I'm not sure where that is.
All right.
Gavel.
We lose Jesse, the whole place goes.
Nah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This time I'd like to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Wicomico County Board of Appeals. This time I'd like to introduce the staff and board members serving this evening. Janae Merchant, a recording secretary. First time with me, so.
She's filling in for Mr. Drewer.
All right. Staff members serving this evening on my far right is Andrew Limonati and Clark Meadows, our zoning administrator. Andrew's our county attorney. Clark Meadows, our zoning administrator. Board members serving this evening on my far left is Tammy Atkins, David Ennis on my left, William Bill Turner on my right, and Jim Morris on my far right. I am Phil Wright, chairman. This time, we're going to address the minutes of December the 15th, at which time Ms. Atkins, Mr. Turner, Mr. Ennis, and Mr. Morris and myself were in attendance. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes?
I move we adopt the minutes.
Motion, Mr. Turner. Second, Mr. Ennis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we would request that anyone that would like to address the board, whether it's either one of the three cases on the agenda tonight, if you'd please stand so that Mr. Illuminati can swear or
Affirm.
affirm, thank you. Swear or affirm your testimony before this board. So please stand, raise your right hand if you want to talk to us anytime during the evening. Because if you don't do it now, then when you want to talk later, you're going to be embarrassed because you're going to be the only one that has to do this again.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that?
Council doesn't have to.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give in the case is now pending before the Wicomico County Board of Appeals is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you.
I do.
If for some reason we have to exit the building, please go out those doors. Turn right when you get to the end of the T. Go all the way down to the end of the hall, take the stairs all the way down, and exit the door outside. Hopefully that won't happen. Okay. So when the applicant's case is called, if they would please come forward, have a seat, state your name, give your mailing address, and make the statement that you have been sworn or you have been affirmed, whichever the case may have been. Mr. Illuminati, would you please call the first item on the agenda?
Case number WA 2301, special exception accessory apartment, Carol Genesi, property located northeast of Salisbury, 31642 Zion Road, A1 zoning district.
Have a seat. Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm Carol Janice, 31642 Zion Road, Parsonsburg.
And I have been.
And I have been affirmed.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Meadows, would you please present the staff report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Janice, do you need a copy of the staff report to follow along, or?
I don't think so.
You good? All right. Mr. Chairman, this staff report and all accompanying documents are hereby entered into the record. They include applicant's Exhibit A, site plan, applicant's Exhibit B, building elevation photo, applicant's Exhibit C, floor plan, The board should have copies of those in their materials attached to the report. An aerial photograph showing the property outlined in red located northeast of Salisbury at 31642 Zion Road. Ms. Janice is here this evening requesting a special exception for an accessory apartment that will be located in a new addition to her home, providing living arrangements for a family member. The attached exhibits show the building elevation and site plan. Evaluation of this request requires that the use be consistent with the county comprehensive plan. The plan does identify this site as being located within an agricultural resource area. The request regards an accessory apartment that would be an enlargement of an existing home on an approved building lot. If approved, the use would not have any adverse effects on surrounding land uses or development, and in accordance with this evaluation and the suggested conditions of approval, the proposed use is consistent with the plan's recommendations for development of the county. Secondly, the proposed use shall have no adverse effects on health, safety, or general welfare. The lot is served by on-site well and sewage disposal systems installed under permits, issued by the county health department. As authorized by Health Department Permit Number 13184 of 10/22/2022, the proposed apartment will be served by the existing services. There's no evidence the granting of this request would have any adverse effects on health, safety, or general welfare of area residents or workers. Thirdly, the proposed use shall be compatible with and not detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties. This is, in addition to the applicant's existing home, is a residentially related use and will not alter the nature of the property or the surrounding area. As a use allowed by special exception, there's the assumption that they're legislatively predetermined to be compatible with surrounding uses and development. Surrounding properties are improved with single-family homes, and the granting of this request will not be detrimental to the use or development of those properties. The fourth criteria requires that the request meet the standards set forth for the special exception. The application does not include any variances from the terms of Chapter 225. The proposed use and suggested conditions of approval require consistency with Section 225-25 definitions and 225-60 standards for an accessory apartment. The proposed apartment complies with all standards set forth in the code. Fifth criteria requires that the use be designed to minimize possible adverse effects on surrounding properties. The apartment will be located within an addition to the existing home. The building elevation shows a structure that is compatible in scale and design with surrounding residences. An accessory apartment is a residentially related use, and there is no evidence the granting of this request would have any adverse effects on the surrounding area. 6, the proposed use shall not adversely affect the identified public facilities. The apartment will be served by existing well and sewage disposal system. If approved, the apartment will not generate traffic in excess of what is normally expected with a single-family home, and there is no evidence the granting of this request would have any adverse effects on those public facilities identified. There are no identified environmental, archaeological, or historical assets regarding this site or the surrounding area, and in accordance with this evaluation, staff recommends that the board grant the special exception as all criteria has been met.
Okay. Ms. Janice,
Yes,
do you have any questions or comments on the staff report as presented thus far?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Meadows, would you please summarize the suggested conditions of approval if this request were to be granted?
Sir, that's paragraph I. Number 1, the special exception shall be exercised within 1 year from the date of issuance. Number 2, development of the site shall be in accordance with the site plan and building elevation. The zoning administrator may approve minor changes in the plan and/or elevations. Major changes shall require the board's review and approval by public hearing. Number 3, the apartment shall be no larger than 50% of the square footage of the residence. Number 4, the apartment shall be maintained in accordance with the code section 225-60. Number 5, failure to comply with the above conditions may render the approval in this matter null and void. And number 6 requires that the applicant comply with the terms and conditions set forth in the county building permit.
Do you have any questions or comments on those suggested conditions of approval?
I do not.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to add to your presentation other than what's been presented?
No, I would just ask, Mr. Meadows, can I get a copy of everything that you've said, the first thing and the second?
Staff report.
The staff report?
Did you not get a copy of the staff report?
I did not.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Thank you. To the records. Thank you.
Yes, so everything he said summarized per se is in that packet. Questions or comments from the board at this time?
They're going to ask you to expand your septic, or is it?
No, the current house has 3 bedrooms. 2 small ones will be turned into either 1 bedroom or an open space. We haven't determined that yet, so it won't require anything. Health already knows that.
Is her site plan in that paperwork?
Yes,
Well, I have
as
it.
submitted by and approved by the health department. I believe the sanitary permit.
1 inch equals 40 feet on top?
Sorry?
The one that says 1 inch equals 40 feet on top?
Yes, sir.
So can you go to the 4th or 5th page in there?
Okay. What are you looking at? The site plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, so you see the sewage disposal area,
Yes,
and then above that is the house.
correct.
Where is the expansion going to be? Is that on the left where it says,
That is on the left.
so there's 3 blocks there?
There's probably going to be 2 garage and living space, but that's neither here nor there right now, but that's where it's going, yes.
So what we see to the right of that is
There's a
And is that
fenced-in
little-
backyard,
that little L shape there going to be built as well to get access?
correct.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the board at this time?
Do you have a tenant?
No,
No.
no, family.
Is there anyone here that has an interest in this case that would like to address the board? Further questions or comments? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant approval for special exception, an accessory apartment, and adopt the staff's evaluation as statements of fact, subject to the suggested conditions, numbers 1 through 6.
Motion, Mr. Turner.
Second.
Second from Ms. Atkins. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Thank you, ma'am. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Illuminati, you're up, sir.
Case number WA 2302, special exception accessory apartment, Peter and Rhonda Tomko, property located northwest of Salisbury, 28263 Log Cabin Road, A1 zoning district.
We have to check downstairs.
They're not holding them downstairs
Okay.
anymore, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Peter and Rhonda Tomko, 28263 Log Cabin Road, Salisbury. We have been affirmed.
Good. I thought you were going to sit over there and he was going to sit
I
over
was
here.
going
was
to,
just
but then I
wondering
thought that
what
would
was
look
going on.
bad.
Mr. Meadows.
Yes, sir. Before we get started, do you guys have a copy?
No, can we have one?
Gosh.
We don't have to have her state her name and give her address since he did that for us, Mr. Illuminati.
Satisfied with that?
Me too. All right, Mr. Meadows, if you please present the staff report and you can follow along as he summarizes it.
Yes, sir, that's, the staff report and accompanying documents are hereby entered into the record, including applicant's Exhibit A, site plan, Applicant's Exhibit B, building elevation photograph. Applicant's Exhibit C, a copy of the Health Department permit. Attached to your materials, you'll see an aerial photograph of the property outlined in red. The property is located northwest of Salisbury at 28263 Log Cabin Road. The Tomcos are seeking the board's approval for an accessory apartment. Similar to the last case, the apartment will be incorporated into the existing attached garage on the home and provide living arrangements for a family member. Property is located northwest of Salisbury, having frontage along the southerly side of Log Cabin Road, about 1/2 mile east of its intersection with Northwest Road. The property is improved with the Tomco's single-story home and detached accessory structures. The requirements and criteria for the special exception are set forth in paragraph G. The project is consistent with recommendations by the comprehensive plan regarding development of the county. The use would cause no land use issues with surrounding agricultural activities. Secondly, the use will not have any adverse effects on the health, safety, or general welfare. It is served by an existing well and sewage disposal system. County Health Department has already issued a sanitary permit, which is attached as an exhibit. The proposed apartment will be served by that existing system. There's no evidence the use would have any adverse effects on health, safety, or general welfare. Thirdly, the use being compatible with surrounding properties. It would not alter the nature of the property itself or the surrounding area. The use is allowed by special exception, and there's the assumption that the proposed use is compatible with surrounding uses and development as allowed in that zoning district. Surrounding properties are improved with similar type homes, and the grant of this request would not be detrimental to the use or development of those abutting or adjacent properties. As in the last request, the proposed use meets all the standards set forth for that use. The application does not include any variances from the terms of Chapter 225. Fifthly, the proposed apartment will be located within a renovated space in the existing home. The submitted building elevation shows a structure that is compatible in scale and design with the abutting and surrounding residences. The residentially related use is consistent with the use of the property and abutting properties as well. The proposed use will not affect the transportation network or unduly burden the identified public facilities. No traffic is expected in excess of the existing home. There are no identified environmental, archaeological, or historical assets regarding this site or the surrounding area. In accordance with this evaluation, staff finds the applicant has satisfied the criteria for the approval of this use and recommends that the board grant the special exception. In addition to the identified exhibits, the applicants have provided 3 letters of support from neighbors. They have been stamped in as applicants' exhibits D1, D2, and D3. I'll pass those around for the board's consideration.
Have any questions or comments on the staff report as was just presented?
None.
All right, Mr. Meadows, would you please summarize the suggested conditions if this request were to be approved?
Yes, sir. That's paragraph paragraph I on the staff report. Number 1, special exception for an accessory apartment shall be exercised within 1 year from the date of issuance. Number 2, development of the site shall be in accordance with the site plan, applicant's Exhibit A, and building elevation, applicant's Exhibit B. The zoning administrator may approve minor changes in the plans or elevation, and major changes would require the board's review and approval by public hearing. Number 3, the apartment shall be no larger than 50% of the square footage of the residence. Number 4, the apartment shall be maintained in accordance with Section 225-60 of the Wicomico County Code. Number 5, failure to comply with the above conditions may render the approval in this matter null and void. Number 6, the applicant shall comply with the terms and conditions set forth in the county building permit.
Have any questions or comments on those suggested conditions of approval?
No, sir.
Questions at this, do you have anything else you'd like to add to your request? Any questions or comments from the board at this time?
On the, I guess it's an application for, it says a special condition of a CO cannot be issued until the new four-bedroom septic is installed, inspected, and improved?
Yes, that's been done.
It's been done.
Yes. So we had that upgrade done. We were originally going to replace our septic.
Yeah.
And then when his parents needed a place, before we went ahead with that, we filed an application with the health department, and they came out and upgraded the whole system. So now we have a really big septic system.
How was that process?
Through the county, really well done. The
Good.
first contractor we used was,
We want to speak about him?
Yeah.
Here.
took a lot of money. So that's a separate issue. But
So the mound is in front of the house?
Yes.
So it's shown on the right-hand side of exhibit.
yes, that's
B.
correct. It's directly to the right of the driveway.
From the start of that septic project to completion, how long did it take?
Well, the correct process, 3-4 weeks. We used Mr. Beecham, and he did a great job. But the 3-4 weeks was just the paperwork and the inspections. The actual work took 3 days. Yeah. We started January of last year and took until October.
We had bad contractor
Yeah.
experience, so we had to, once we knew the apartment we needed to provide my parents a place, we submitted with the town again. It was upsized. That all took 3 or 4 weeks, and you
Went
know,
smoothly.
we got her done very quickly. Mr. Beecham was able to come out and literally within a week knock it out.
Good.
So that all went very well.
Not the story you always hear.
You don't have enough time for the first story.
It's okay. Another day.
Yeah.
So, is there still a gentleman out in your neighborhood that's in the concrete business?
Yes.
Has he signed one of these letters or
No,
not?
he's two houses from us.
Okay.
But the people on either side and across the street is who we asked letters for.
Yeah.
Is-
Buddy
you have-
properties.
Do you have any problem with the gentleman who has a concrete business?
No.
Okay, good. We granted him the right to do that, so that's why I'm just.
He lays
think-
low.
It's been a long time ago, but
Yeah.
certain things I have long memories on. Other questions, and discussion from the board at this time? Is there anyone here that has an interest in this request that would like to address the board? You must have done your homework. Okay, if there's no further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval for the special exception accessory apartment for Peter and Rhonda Tomko. I agree with the evaluation of the request, and it will cause no adverse effect to health, safety, and traffic, et cetera. And with compliance to the suggested conditions, I feel that it's in line to be approved.
Motion, Mr. Ennis.
Second.
Second, Mr. Morris. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Passed. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman
very,
and
very
committee
much.
members.
Thanks.
Mr. Illuminati.
Case number WA 2303, special exception. Privately owned and operated utility, solar, Elk Development LLC, property located north of Mardellis Springs, 10070 Sharptown Road, A1 zoning district.
Brings you here, Mr. Cropper.
I missed you. How are you this evening?
We're great. All right, gentlemen, starting on my left, your right, please state your name, give your mailing address, and make the statement that you were sworn or affirmed.
John Bradison, 20010 Bluff Point Drive, Millsboro, Delaware, and I was sworn in.
What was that last name, sir?
Bradison, Bradeson.
B-R-A-D-S-O-N.
ESON. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Seth Schaefer, Pivot Energy, 6865
Deer Path Lane, Elk Ridge, Maryland, 21075. And shortest way is spelled Schaefer.
Spell it like Donald did?
Former, what?
Governor.
Governor?
And for the record, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
Mr. Cropper.
Mark Spencer Cropper, 6200 Coastal Highway, Suite 200, Ocean City, Maryland, and I'm the attorney for the applicant.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Meadows,
Yes, sir.
looks like he's got some paperwork for you.
I believe this
Or
is
us.
the hard copies for the PowerPoint.
Mr. Chairman, that's all it is. We have a PowerPoint, and these are just hard copies, so you can follow along with
Okay.
the hard copies.
All right.
Janae, you ready
I am.
for that as when needed? Okay, thanks. Agenda item number 3, Mr. Chairman, Elk Creek Development LLC requesting a special exception for the privately owned and operated utility solar facility. Included and entered into the record, applicant's Exhibit A letter of proposal. The board should have copies of these exhibits. Applicant's Exhibit B, a reduced copy of the site plan. Applicant's Exhibit C, the landscape plan. Attached to the materials, you'll see the property outlined in red. That part of the property that would be developed with per this request would be that open field abutting Sharptown Road, the westerly side of Sharptown Road. The subject property is a little over 98 acres in size. The requested solar facility would utilize approximately 17 acres of that piece. Once online, the requested facility will contribute electricity towards the state's goal of increasing power generation from renewable sources. The site is located about 0.6 of a mile north of its intersection with Delmar Road. The property, a little over 98 acres, improved with a 2-story farmhouse and some accessory structures. Majority of the property is used for grain production. The site has in excess of 1,500 feet of frontage along the westerly side of Sharptown Road. While planning office records do not include any other requests or action by the board for a similar facility in the area, in other requests of similar circumstances, the board has determined solar projects to be consistent with the goals and objectives of the county comprehensive plan. Further, the board has found those projects did not adversely affect existing agricultural use of the property and is compatible with surrounding agricultural activities. In greater detail under paragraph G, the proposed use is consistent with the recommendations of the county comprehensive plan and that the use is allowed by special exception in the A1 district. There's no indication that the grant of this request would create land use issues with surrounding agricultural activity. In accordance with this condition, the requested use is consistent with the comprehensive plan's recommendation for development of the county. Secondly, the criteria shall be that the use have no adverse effects on health, safety, or general welfare. The solar facility would generate minimal noise, no smoke or noxious odors, and does not include any activities requiring use or storage of hazardous materials. The solar field will be enclosed with security fencing with the gated entry. There's no evidence the granting of this request would have any adverse effects on the health, safety, or general welfare of area residents. Thirdly, the special exception has been predetermined to be compatible with other uses and development in the underlying zoning district. Post-construction activity on the site will be of a less intensive nature than normal farming operations. The farm will generate minimal noise. When compared to many of the inherently permitted uses in the same zoning district, the proposed solar facility is a less intense use of the land. If approved, the project will not be detrimental to the use or development of surrounding properties. This is a request for a special exception, and the application does not include any proposed variances from the terms of and conditions of Chapter 225. Development of the site will not require any clearing of wooded areas on the property. The existing trees along the northerly perimeter of the project will be retained as an established buffer. The solar array will require use of about 17 acres out of a 98-acre parcel. The panels are set back significant distances from abutting residential development and roadways. The site plan and suggested conditions of approval include the establishment of a vegetative buffer, minimizing visual impacts on adjacent properties. Again, the use would create little or no noise, no smoke, dust, odor, or other offensive conditions. The granting of this request will cause no adverse effects on nearby properties. The proposed use will not generate traffic in excess of what's normally experienced in the rural parts of the county. Site development will comply with county standards regarding stormwater management, forest conservation, and other factors. The identified ditches on the property are subject to the authority of the Maryland Department of the Environment. The applicant does not intend to disturb the ditching and has advised staff that MDE has been consulted regarding the proposed development. There's no evidence that the use of this site will have any adverse effects on the other identified public resources. There are no identified environmental, historical, or archaeological assets regarding this site or the surrounding area. In accordance with this evaluation, staff finds the applicant has satisfied the criteria for the approval of this request and recommends that the board grant the special exception.
Any questions or comments about the staff report up to this point in time, Mr. Cropper?
No, Mr. Chairman. And in fact, one, I want to compliment Mr. Meadows for his staff report. We agree with the staff report in all respects, and both my witnesses are going to be adopting the staff report as their testimony and presentation here this evening. So we can short-circuit some of this because the staff report was so well done.
All right. Mr. Meadows, if you please summarize the suggested conditions if this request were to be approved.
Yes, sir, that's paragraph I, page 4. Number 1, the special exception, privately owned and operated utility for a 2-megawatt solar facility shall be exercised within 1 year from the date of issuance. Number 2, development of the site shall be in accordance with the site plan and landscape plan, applicants exhibits B and C. Minor changes in the plans may be approved by the zoning administrator. Major changes may require the board's review and approval by public hearing. Number 3, the solar field shall be enclosed with security fencing and gated entrances. Number 4 addresses the decommissioning of the solar facility to be approved by the county attorney. Mr. Cropper is well-versed in that exercise with Mr. Illuminati's office. And that final inspection and approval of the county or the applicant is released upon condition of approval by the Board of Appeals. Number 5, the applicant shall obtain applicable county permits and comply with all codes and regulations set forth therein. Additional materials may be required by the appropriate department and/or agency. Number 6, failure to comply with the above conditions may render the approval in this matter null and void.
Questions or comments on the suggested conditions of approval?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Not yet. But you will be heard. We let them make the presentation, and then interested parties have the opportunity to appear and have questions and so forth. Okay. You may proceed, Mr. Cropper.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer, please identify yourself and role you play for Pivot Energy.
Certainly. So Seth Schaefer, Pivot Energy. I'm the project developer for the site. So I obtain all permits and all necessary, basically, permits and approvals, coordination with the landowner once we have determined what would be called site control or signing of the lease with the landowner.
And not only have you had an opportunity to review the staff report prepared by Mr. Meadows, but you've heard Mr. Meadows read that staff report into the record this evening, correct?
I have, yes.
And do you adopt Mr. Meadows' testimony and his staff report as your testimony and presentation here this evening?
I do.
Mr. Bredesen, if you will do the same thing, state your position with McCrone Engineering.
Yes, John Bradison, I'm a civil designer with McCrone Engineering here in Salisbury. I did the original layout for this project.
And you likewise had an opportunity to review the staff report prepared by Mr. Meadows, and you heard Mr. Meadows' description of that staff report a few minutes ago. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And do you adopt Mr. Meadows' testimony and staff report as your testimony and presentation here this evening?
Yes, I do.
So, Mr. Chairman, supplemental to the staff report, I've handed out a packet entitled Pivot Energy, which is,
There's one up here if you want to look at it, ma'am.
yes, we have extras, which is the same as you're going to see on a presentation in a minute. And I guess, Mr. Meadows, since you identified Exhibits A, B, and C attached to your staff report.
This would be applicant's Exhibit D.
Yes. And I would ask that this be introduced into the record as well. And without further ado, if we can have the presentation brought up on the screen, please. And I'll have Mr. Schaefer go through the presentation.
It's behind you.
Behind you
Oh.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking in the wrong
That's
direction.
over there. Cheaper. It's okay, right?
So we're going to do it here.
Sorry.
Okay.
I can ask him to switch it.
You going to switch it?
I'll ask him.
Oh, you can ask him, okay.
It's fine, isn't it?
If everybody can see it, we're good there.
We're good.
It's up to you.
Good? Everybody good?
We're good.
Everybody see it? We're good. Okay. Thanks.
You got a date, Tammy?
Yeah, I'm tired. Okay.
You can go ahead while that's going into.
You want to go ahead to the next?
Sure, yeah, if we could go forward to the next slide, just a little bit of background on Pivot Energy. Pivot Energy is a company based out of Denver, Colorado. We have an office in Elkridge, Maryland, like I said, just south of Baltimore. Our bread and butter, so to speak, or our main focus is community solar. So it's anywhere from 5 megawatts and down for properties that are typically anywhere from 10 to 20 acres of property. This is just simply showing where we have projects that we either are in the development phase or own and operate. We see projects through from beginning to end, so we develop, operate, and maintain the sites. And then this just gives a little bit, the 1.1 gigawatt is just the overall power developed of our project portfolio. A company was started in 2009, so.
Next slide.
This is just giving a little bit of background, not really pertinent to this project per se, just, again, just talking a little bit about the company and what they do relative to on and off-site solar, whether it's behind the meter or not, as in part of a company's actual power being generated. So that's just giving a little background on the types of projects we work on.
Next, please.
These are just a couple bullet items on this project, which are also reflected on the site plan. The proposed size is a 2 megawatt AC facility. Proposed fence lease area is like was stated in the staff report, just under 17 acres of the overall 98 acre parcel. Just giving some data, the module count, which is the actual what's absorbing solar energy, is a little over 5,000 modules. And then the racking type is a single axis tracker, and what that means is the the solar panels would follow the sun. So everything is aligned north to south, and you're rotating throughout the day to maximize your solar solar absorption.
Next, please.
That's why it's called Pivot.
I guess that's called Pivot, yeah. So this would just be a snapshot of the site, overall site plan showing where the solar facility would be relative to the overall parcel. Basically the northeast corner fronting Sharptown Road. This is a blow-up showing our proposed landscape buffer on the eastern and southeast side of the property where there is not existing vegetation, and showing also a better shot of the access road and the small equipment pad that we would have off of Sharptown Road. We're utilizing existing farm access point. This slide's just trying to give some details relative to the agricultural fence that would be used. what the solar panel would look like in different positions, and then some of the equipment that would be used on site. These are just some additional details. These last couple slides were more just for the benefit if anyone was curious about community solar. I won't necessarily go through them, but it just gives a little bit of background for folks that aren't aware of maybe the term of community solar. I think certainly the board, the council is. So we probably can just move through these. They're not really project specific. They're more talking about giving a couple benefits just of the purpose of community solar and what we're trying to achieve. On the back end, again, I'm sure the council knows this, but we would have a subscription service, and there would be subscribers to the community solar based on how it was registered with the PSC. And folks would be available to subscribe to this green power. And then next slide. Just had a note in here. We look to promote agrivoltaics. Not proposing anything at this time other than our seed mix, which is typically a pollinator mix to promote bees. But wanted to just mention this is another potential use of the property, but not being proposed for this particular site. And then just a few items on the benefits of agrivoltaics relative to continuing agricultural use while you still have the panels in place.
Will you have hives on site or just wild bees that can use?
It would just be the wildflower mix to promote pollinators.
I noticed that you said that you could use sheep, bees, and other grazing animals to maintain the sites, but how do bees help you maintain your site?
Really, it's you're helping the bees. The bees aren't really helping your site. We would be actually doing mowing maintenance.
And what other kind of
biannually.
grazing animals might you have on?
It would typically be sheep. Goats tend to chew the wires, and obviously pigs are a little too aggressive, and cows tend to make them into scratching posts and then throw everything out of kilter. So, what some people do is raise everything up.
These like traveling sheep that come in, you take them to different sites and you leave them there for.
Yeah, it would almost be like crop rotation. Yeah, like you would have them there for a time, make sure they're not completely overwhelming the vegetation.
But you can also mow it too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, you're not saying it's strictly sheep
Right.
grazed.
Yes, yeah, because the goal is always when it's tilted that obviously we don't want any shading, so it's in our best interest to keep it mowed. Yep.
That's one of my questions. You were talking about the state doing the mowing on the ditches. Like, how are you going to maintain that? Because like even
The tax ditch, the ditches that are,
yeah.
Ditches that I was mentioning in the staff report are on site. That's on the farm. We're not talking about the
Okay,
ditching
so
along 313.
it said something about state ditch.
They're just under the authority of MDE they were identified as a blue line stream, so that's,
They'll maintain the ditch. Or the state is.
the on-site ditches we would maintain. yes.
Okay, yeah.
That's correct.
It looks like your panels go over top of the ditch.
So,
You would still maintain the ditch.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And they're designed in order that you can do so.
So the ditch is inside the fence.
Maintained as part of the project, correct? Correct.
I'm finding in this county that they do not find it important for drainage. And it's very important.
So what's the frequency of the sheep being on site? in a typical installation of this size?
It would be, since there wouldn't be any shelters on site, it would be more seasonal. So it might be a couple months out of the year.
So who's responsible for supervising those sheep?
So there's a.
What shepherds do we have?
Sure. Yeah. So they have a national organization for grazing, so there's a lot of third-party sheep herders, I guess, or sheep shepherds that would be contracted with to bring those on site to.
Do you have any other operations that use this in this general vicinity of Delmarva?
We don't. And it's something that would be considered, but not necessarily definitely happen. So I would say the fallback would be is we are going to maintain it through mowing twice a year. That's a definite. And then there's a potential to.
Mow between the solar arrays, or do you mow underneath as well?
Yeah, we would mow all vegetation. Yep.
Kind of because,
kind of.
I know you have sort of I don't mean this negatively, but selling an environmental sensitivity to the project. Your mowing is done in a way that doesn't disturb spring animals and things like that. In other words, you time it so that it's not disturbing natural activity.
Right, and we're certainly not mowing it either like a golf course or,
Right.
Any facility relative to like an actual lawn. It's more of an agricultural mowing, I would call it.
I bring that up because I know there are like homeowners associations can get worked up over mowing certain times a year because of the little baby bunnies and stuff, that kind of stuff. So that's why I asked that question.
Gotcha.
So you found it necessary to mow in most of your operations?
Yes. Yeah, based on the mix we're using, it grows pretty substantially through the year, so we want to maintain it. The bottom of the panel is still several feet off the ground, but we just want to make sure that there's no overgrowth and shading, and then if it gets too big, you start to, I think, have the potential to attract additional wildlife.
You have a 20-year lease with options?
I believe it's a 30-year lease with 2 10-year options, I believe.
What is the lifespan of a solar panel?
Typical lifespan of a solar panel is between 25 and 30 years.
And then what do you do with them?
Sometimes they're repurposed to third world countries, or they are recycled. They're mainly glass and silica. So those are the two ways. We typically have a decommissioning plan to restore, because we're trying to do minimal grading on the site, so not really changing the landscape too much.
Would this be your first installation in Wicomico County?
It would.
And you understand the requirements of, that you're responsible for solar array upon the discontinuance of the operation?
Yes, we are.
And you work with the county attorney as far as bonding and so forth?
We will. We have not, but yeah.
Because of my familiarity with the decommissioning plan, agreement, and bond, when I was first engaged by this client, I made them aware of that. So details on what the responsibilities and obligations are.
Do individuals subscribe directly through your company, or is this part of like the Delmarva Power, I forget what it's called, neighborhood solar? You can sign up for it and get reduced pricing, or do they subscribe directly through you all?
In this case, it would be directly through us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is your plan, it doesn't have any effect on the approval, but do your projects tend to be sold to a third party and then you maintain it, or?
So in this particular case, so we have a second project we acquired in the county, and so that one we would own and maintain.
For a second project?
The Greystone?
Mr. Chairman, I came before this board probably a year ago. The Greystone project, there's Pittsville, so it's just north of Route 50,
60-foot road?
60-foot road. And this board approved it. That project's now been acquired by Pivot Energy.
Okay.
That's the one he's referring to.
Okay.
So I guess related to your previous question, there's a possibility that could be built first, but these are kind of running parallel. But that particular project we acquired, and we would definitely own, maintain, and subscribers. This particular project would be owned by someone else, but have the same thing where they're the owner, maintain, and they would have subscribers through them.
When the panels pivot, is that done with an electric motor?
It is.
Does the array supply the power to run those motors?
Yes.
How many motors, is there a motor on each panel or one motor on each?
It's they call them strings, so it's it can vary, but it's anywhere from 6 to 12 panels, so like stacks of 2, and then it's rotating on a main tube.
Each frame has its own motor.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So it's like on a hinge.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Power inverters, what it's called, that the power goes through?
Correct.
So is this?
So you're generating DC power, and then yes, that needs to be converted to AC.
So are the inverters and the motor operating the same number of solar panels?
That's a good question. I believe it's at multiple motors per inverter. We try to minimize how many inverters we have on site. Don't know the exact count there, but there would be multiple, but not as many as the motors for the actual panels.
Notice you don't have a footprint in Delaware. Are there some market issues there? This is on my own curiosity, why you're not in Delaware, that.
Actually, this map needs to be updated. We are in Delaware. We have a couple projects in Sussex County.
Gotcha.
Just a lot of struggle with the process there, though, but yeah. Yep. And that's still
They're
Delmont.
not as
Colorado.
friendly as we are.
Yeah, I know. They just choose to, I think, must have quite a queue of projects because it's quite a backlog of just their planning department in general, it seems like, so, yep.
Depends on what you want to do there.
Right.
If you want to build a house, it's a lot easier.
That is true.
Okay, ma'am, you can come up here and have a seat next to Mr. Cropper. State your name, your mailing address, and you've been sworn or affirmed.
Hi there, my name is Trudy Kuzi. I live at 10085 Sharptown Road, which is, I think, directly across from where you. I think I've been sworn in, is that what I did a while ago? Okay, do you need anything else?
No, ma'am. Have a seat and
Thank you.
ask your questions.
Well,
Make your statements.
my question is, I guess, this is the letter is the first notice of anything going on. So we're like very curious what's going on. When you describe and show the site map, I'm trying to figure out where our house is. And I believe you said there was a farmhouse as part of this property, right?
There's one or two.
South, yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Like right here?
I'm going to switch places. Seth?
Yeah. It's probably like.
There's a
right here.
bigger site plan.
Here we go.
But easier to see.
It'll be easier to
I couldn't
see.
read these little teeny words like.
Right, yeah,
no.
that's not easy at all.
There you go. Wow, that's us right there. Thank you.
What's
Okay,
that number?
He's showing me, this is a,
18005 is hers.
Okay. And then,
On the east side of the road.
where?
So,
Oops, sorry.
so if we if we rotate this. So if you look at this common property line here, this red line,
Yes.
that's that.
Okay, so we're probably like,
Posey, Sue Posey, which would be this parcel here.
oh, okay, so we're here,
So you're like right here,
yes,
right in here.
yeah.
So looking directly across, yeah, we would be like the lower
Back
corner.
Corner,
And then this, what we're trying to represent here is our landscape buffer that we're proposing along here on two sides. And then from there up is the proposed array. So it's basically, it's basically from like this, about this line up.
okay. So like right here is the horse farm. Have you been out there?
Yes, yep.
That's
Okay,
the
so
horse
help
farm?
me-
Yeah, directly.
Where's,
that's-
Ms. Pusey, where's the horse farm in relation to this? Is it across the road?
No, horse farm is right next to us.
So is it toward Sharptown from you? Or
249.
Toward Mardella?
Yes, towards Sharptown,
Toward
the
Sharptown.
horse farm is.
So the vet is closer to Mardella,
The what?
the vet, the
Yes,
veterinarian?
it's closer to the vet is closer to Sharptown.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not very far from us. The vet.
But she's on the other side of,
She's on the same side of the road as us. The vet is.
right. So you got J&S, who you're talking about J&S on the horse farm.
So
J&S,
I don't know who owns it. I know it's the ones that own the trailer place also.
yes,
Okay. Yeah, that's directly right next to us.
okay.
There's a ditch, is all there is. So.
Mr.
that
Chairman, would
be
you
right
like
here.
Ms. Pusey on the big plan that you gave me to come up and identify her home or her location for the board?
I
Oh,
would,
it's okay. He's shown it to me where we're at. I kind of thought I was looking at it right, but I just wanted to make sure. And like, right now, it's a blank field, and there's a farmhouse, like a little white farm, or right there, that's the farmhouse, correct?
Correct.
I
Yep.
think that's just a rental or something. I don't know. I don't know who owns it, but, they have tenants in and out, I think.
the staff reports say two residences, or am I thinking of something else?
Just the 170 is the farmhouse for this farm, and she is directly across the road
Right. Yep,
and just a bit north.
yep. We can see the farmhouse from our front window, and typically the field is just, like you said, it's used for farming, and of course, a lot of deer hunting and that kind of stuff takes place back here, around. I was just trying to get a good picture of where you were talking, so if I'm looking here, you're saying I'm about,
Yeah, you're right about where it says sharp.
So are we in agreement is where Ms. Pusey is in
Yeah.
relation to the, okay.
yeah, it was just hard to see on that other thing, I'm like,
So
can't tell.
from her property, when she's looking across the road, then she's going to have to go northwest to see where the planned location of the solar array is. And there's going to be plantings on both the south, east, and the eastern side of those fences.
Correct.
So she will eventually be looking at screened plantings of what type of trees?
It was a mix of vegetation. Do you have that, John?
Shrubs, plants, shade trees.
That'll be Exhibit C, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know that we,
Shade trees, deciduous trees, shrubs,
So how tall will they grow?
that I'm not sure of right off. I was not the one who prepared this. We had a landscape architect throw this together, and it's a array of trees that she's used in the past on other solar projects.
Sure to not get too tall.
No.
Shade, yep, gotcha.
6 foot height of,
A minimum of 6 feet.
minimum 4, minimum 4.
Yeah, they will block the fence completely.
Gotcha.
They will what?
They will be blocking the fence completely.
After how long?
I know the ones that, the initial trees they're putting in are 6 feet tall, and I believe the fence on the property is a 6-foot fence.
yeah, that sounds right. That's on that same, or not
Yeah.
that exhibit, but the next one.
6
We
or
have the
8.
Detail of the fence.
And they're starting.
We're proposing
6 foot minimum
agricultural fence, so like wood post graded.
maple.
It's not chain link fence.
And there's a buffer, and then you have the landscaping? Is that what it's showing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't see through it?
But you can definitely see through it. It's kind of like, I would call it, I've always called it deer fence, where it's like a wooden post and then open grate, metal fencing between the posts. I'm just saying it's not chain link.
But the
As far as
vegetation's
fencing.
on the outside.
I'm sorry, yes, yeah, the fence line and then the vegetation's on the outside.
So from Ms. Pusey's house, because I think this is what the board's trying to get to, what is she going to be looking at? And ultimately, she's going to be looking at vegetation that's blocking the view of the fence.
Yes, correct. I'm sorry, yeah, correct. Yes, the plantings are all outside of the array.
Okay.
Correct.
So if you've got no chain link, and you've got, I'm trying to envision the fencing you're talking about, theoretically, if somebody was curious enough, they could climb it without having that wire. It's not gonna have barbed wire, but chain link fence normally has a wire top that would cut you. So that's just gonna be a flat,
He's asking, there's not going to be barbed wire at the top of this fence, is that correct?
No, I
That's
don't
not
believe-
planned?
No, that is not planned.
Okay.
So I want to make sure I understand. So along the roadway, there's fencing that we're talking about. Behind that, then there's a little bit of a buffer of just the farming area. And then there's the landscaping back there?
Yeah, so we have Sharptown Road, then we have a small sliver of ag land. I believe it's roughly 100 feet. Then we have the vegetation, the fencing, and then everything inside the fencing would be maintained as far as mowed.
Isn't there fencing along the roadway?
No, there's no fencing along the roadway currently.
Isn't it showing?
parallel to the road,
Yes, parallel, but it's not.
be inside the,
So between the road and the fence is where the vegetation goes.
Correct.
Yeah, this
The
weird.
vegetation is a buffer.
That's what I was
Gotcha.
looking at that,
Yep.
yeah.
So basically coming right off.
Okay, that's just the property line that's dotted on
Yes.
this. Okay.
Yes.
So there's really a rather, a fair buffer from the roadway back to this.
So you ever get to the vegetation?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Saying
correct.
like 100
All right,
feet,
I got you.
Yes.
something like that.
so is it typical of your size operation to have this much acreage? I mean, we've passed approval for this amount of kilowatts, 10 acres. I'm sure the property owner loves to have,
Loves that it's 16.
yeah,
Part of the problem, I think, with this site, I'd need the electrical engineer to tell me why he did what he did, but, we had, everything has to be due north-south. So you can see we kind of have, within the fence line, we have some dead spaces that we're leasing, but they're kind of, right, they'd be like kind of the open blank spots. The whole purpose of that is, again, going back to what Mr. Morris had asked relative to how many motors, they're stringed, so you kind of have clusters of panels. You can't just almost like kind of fill in the dots there with individual panels. It's all trying to maximize your efficiency with the overall system, so it doesn't always fit nicely geometry-wise. So that's part of the reason for the extra acreage.
Property belongs to Wayne Atkinson. By any chance? I think those are the three,
side of the road's he on.
same side?
Same side as you?
No.
Oh, same side as the property.
Yes, he's right in there somewhere.
All right, well, let's look.
It's not.
I don't see
Don't
his
see him as an
name as an
adjoiner.
adjoiner, no.
I'm really surprised he's not here, honestly, because he's very close to that. Matter of fact, he leases that land to hunt on, they have a hunting club there, which is why I'm so familiar with it. It's really,
If he doesn't own it,
No, I'm sure he doesn't, but
he wouldn't have,
he's backed right up to it though, and that's.
but he wouldn't have been notified if he doesn't own it. And if he didn't come by during the time that it was posted, he wouldn't know
I
anything
didn't see
about
the
it.
sign until today. I got the notice in the mail, but I didn't see the sign in the field till today. That's the main reason, because we had kind of guessed at where it might be. We're like, because the way it describes it, it's like it's off Route 50 and stuff. I'm like, okay.
It has to be up, correct, Clark? There's a
Right.
timeline, you have to have it up. The
So-
sign posted.
It has to be up at least 10 days ahead, but I think it was probably posted, the first week of December. I don't know. the
I know
date
we,
exactly.
we got the notice in the mail, and that was in plenty of time, but we're not even, necessarily objecting. We just didn't have a clue what was going on,
Understand. You
so I
wanna know what's
thought,
going on.
somebody better go and find out. So,
So to belabor the issue, Mr. Schaefer, the fence, who's responsible for controlling the weeds that grow up in that fence line? The property owner or the
No, we'd be
leasing?
responsible for that whole landscape buffer and anything between the landscaping and the fence line. So the fence line itself.
Landscape buffer,
Shrubbery, right?
Yeah, any of these proposed plantings, we would maintain as far as ensuring that they live. And
I
then,
mean, I'm just familiar with weeds and trees actually growing up within chain link fences, so.
sure. No, that would definitely be all in our best interest to keep all that buttoned up, for sure.
I wanted to compliment you on the buffer along the front because we just had one a couple months ago where it was jam-packed right up to somebody's backyard, and it created an awkward situation where it was right on top, that he felt was right on top of him, and it was a challenge for us to approve, but, so I like seeing at least a buffer there, so if you do any more in our county, I like to see that.
Bill, to that end, it generated a conversation between Clark and I about maybe a different type of buffer when it butts up to an existing dwelling versus an existing farm field.
And certainly, if there's already existing forest there, we've already got a buffer.
Yeah. But when you butt up to a dwelling space, maybe it would behoove us to have a wider buffer or a further setback to.
In a lot of codes, Clark can correct me, the main distinction between a buffer, a vegetative buffer and a vegetative screening is really what you're talking about. A screening is a more dense layer of vegetation, which is more difficult to see through versus a buffer. And maybe what you're talking about is if you're too close to a neighboring resident, it would be a vegetative screening more so than a vegetative buffer, but.
That, I agree with you, and maybe even an additional setback.
And it was so narrow, we were wondering how they were gonna get a mower back there to,
Oh, right.
I mean, that's how tight it was to the property line, so.
Yeah, we're also developing projects in other counties in the Eastern Shore here, and one that comes to mind would be, if you wanted to look for a comparison, would be Kent County. We were required to have it was in relation to entering one of the towns within Kent County, but it was a 60-foot buffer, vegetative buffer, so, this room and another half or twice this room wide buffer, vegetative buffer that was required. So it's basically putting a forest in the middle of an ag field, but it's certainly gonna completely screen the facility, so.
Not to go too far down this rabbit hole, the situation that you're referring to, coincidentally, we are pushing forward legislation specific to solar, essentially codifying the practices that this board has established over the course of 8 years now, dealing with solar projects. But we generally have gone with the setbacks as allowed by the specific zoning district it's in. Most of the time, what we have been dealing with is A1 zoning, so 50 feet from the property line. I think that was the issue with the parties that had an issue with that particular field. Mr. Morris suggested considering perhaps a 100-foot setback in that situation where it butted up against residential development. We discussed that at Planning Commission, and they settled in on a 75-foot setback, so we're looking at that across the board in what we are proposing for the council's consideration.
There's some shrubbery that's an evergreen that would be a perfect buffer, you know, I guess you gotta find the right one.
We would defer to landscape architects on species and planting schedules and that sort of thing.
Really, it's about developing best practices for a relatively new phenomena of what's being built in the county.
Anonymous shrubbery does very well in this area. Nice big green bush all year.
I think so. I mean, we were just like, we better find out what's going on.
Make sure, that's why we're here.
Have quiet neighbors.
Well, you know, I know that there's a lot of hunters in the area, and I don't know if anybody has a clue any of this is going on, honestly. You know, and if they did, they probably forgot about the meeting tonight or something, but
I know the hunters know about it. They have.
they've contacted
They
you.
they have confronted our survey crew and a
good.
couple of the
Who's that?
MDE,
Mr. Atkinson, probably.
people who went out checking on the agricultural ditches for us. They have been confronted. Our landscape architect was confronted by them.
We call him the mayor of Mardella. But,
Well, it's nice, and I just, just to let you know that
Yeah.
if the project is sold to a third party, these individuals came forward with what is an attractive plan that's respectful of the neighbors, and it's nice to have that way, so any future owners, you have a little space there. When it's jammed right up next to somebody, you can sell it to somebody and they don't quite maintain the property as well as somebody else, it becomes issues for the neighbors. So I just wanted to encourage them to continue being respectful of the neighbors as they bring other projects forward.
Thank you.
but you did say that this one would be probably sold to a third party.
It would be sold to another company. That's Virginia-based, but yes. Yep.
And you said in order for, like, let's say us to get a discount on our electric or whatever, we wouldn't go through Delmarva Power, we would go through.
We would go through the other company. The other company is called Madison Energy Investments, MEI.
And they send notices to us, or how
Yeah,
would we
they would,
even
they
know
would
about
actually,
that?
yeah, they would put a mailer out to see folks who are interested in subscribing. Yep. And that would be, not applicable to this, but just, we go through the process of getting all our applications through what's called the PSC at the state level, and then, the interconnection agreements with Delmarva Power. So we're working through that. So just from a timing perspective, we're probably a good another year out or so. So that all, just so, you'll see progress eventually, but
Right.
I'm sure there'll be at least another
They
crop
won't be right.
rotation and,
Right, you won't see
yeah.
anything right away.
So it's a little, everything takes time as far as the.
Thank you for your time. It's appreciated.
We were hoping that it had some kind of a positive effect on the new school that was being remodeled and stuff there too. And we were hoping that maybe had some tie-in, or maybe they were getting some kind of benefit from it or whatever, but they would have to subscribe to it, is what you're saying.
Right. It's meant more for individual subscribers, yeah, individual homeowners.
They already have solar at the high school. At the high school. They have a solar array just behind the school.
I appreciate you answering my questions, and
Thank you.
hopefully everything will work out well.
Yep.
Where's the power going into the Delmarva Power? Where's their station, their substation?
For this size facility, we just need a couple proposed poles, and it'll tie into the three-phase along Sharpstown. So we don't actually need to build a substation or anything like that, based on the size of the project.
And if the council, Mr. Meadows, Mr. Illuminati, if the council accepts the 75-foot setback that the planning commission is recommending, that doesn't prohibit us from expanding it if we see fit?
That would be by special exception, and I think the board has inherent powers. Any case is, the board could modify, I mean, that's kind of the point of the special
The
exception.
draft approved by the planning commission will provide the board that power. What council passes, if it passes, we'll see, but that was included by the planning commission.
If there were conditions specific to a site that the board would see fit to increase that, that would be within the board's powers as well.
So we need to talk to Mr. Cannon? I imagine he'll be interested in the board's opinion at some point.
Okay. Just don't want to get our hands tied so we don't have any leverage.
No, we considered that in drafting it.
That's all public records here.
Is there anyone else that has an interest in this request that would like to address the board? Any further questions or discussion from the board?
This whole report,
Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
zoning administrator, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the special exception for privately owned and operated utility solar facility for the Elk Development LLC, and agree with all the evaluation the staff provided, and with compliance to the suggested conditions, I don't think there will be any adverse effects.
Motion, Mr. Ennis.
Second.
Second, Ms. Atkins. Further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Passed. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Ladies.
Thank you
Mr. Illuminati, would you take the pin and stick it in his head now after it's swollen? From Mr. Cropper's remarks?
Oh, it's just a matter of time before he goes the other way. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other business as on the agenda, but if I could have the board for a few minutes after you gavel out.
All right, since we have no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And Mark might want to stick around for this. As to that legislation, there was some, and